Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, Madam Chair and councillors. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. And I want to start off by saying that we recognise the difficult fiscal situation, and that the the expectations of our community will have to be managed, and that we have to bear in mind that the damage in the east is far more significant than it is in our ward. And our ward, of course, has had its fair share of damage, but we want to recognise that Hagley Ferrymead and Burwood Pegasus in particular have borne the brunt of the earthquake damage. I want to make it clear that our top priority is the Waltham Pool, and we're very pleased that the Community Committee has made a recommendation to Council, and I want to urge councillors now to support that. That's our number one priority, along with the memorial gates. We're very pleased that those are progressing. And I want to be clear also that the Strengthening Communities Fund is vital for the strength of our communities, and that's why it's called Strengthening Communities, but that we have a large number of community groups that are doing much more than their fair share of bearing the brunt of the social costs of the earthquake. And they are stretched, they don't have places to go, they don't have accommodation, they are facing escalating costs in accommodation if they do have it, and all their volunteers and workers are also affected by the earthquakes. And we would like to see in the LTP that funding would actually increase back to the level it was before the cuts in 2006. And we know that comes at significant cost, but the benefits to the community far exceed the economic cost.
Over 10 years.
Yeah, so that would be of course, over 10 years. We are very strongly opposed to the sale of any council assets, strategic assets, and we want to reiterate that and to say that there really needs to be a cost-benefit analysis done, a rigorous one of any disposal of assets, and it needs to be really made clear to the community what the options are, and it needs to be a rigorous consultation process so that our people have the opportunity to say what they think about the options. I want to also say that we think that one of the best ways of reducing the cost to council, we know this is outside your control at the moment, would be to can a number of the anchor projects. And so that would be, of course, the stadium, the convention centre, the Metro Sports Complex, and to repair only the auditorium in the town hall. And I also want to say that we've heard the suggestion in the media that having one pool in each ward would be a better way of spending the money that would be spent on the Metro Sports facility, and we support that. In particular, having new pools in Burwood Pegasus and Hagley Ferrymead.
We wanted to tell you, in conclusion, we wanted to tell you the story of one street in our ward. Grange Street goes from Ainsley Terrace on the river to Opara Road / motorway and the industrial area of Woolston. When the Opara Road was forced through, it was left unfinished at the end of Grange Street, and at the other end it has some drainage and water problems. The residents had worked hard for 10 years to get their street considered for an upgrade, and they had got to the top of the list and work was about to start when the earthquake happened. They visited Cashmere View, which had just been finished. They adored the trees and the wide berms and the calm. They were looking forward to having their street look like that when the earthquake happened. The lovely people of Grange Street, the ones that had led the fight for the 10 years to get their street considered, came and saw us after the earthquake and said that they understood that other issues were more essential, that other people's needs were more important. They understood that Grange Street was unlikely to be started in any future that they could foresee. we on the community board would like Grange Street to see it stay on the council's books and in its sites. We would like the residents of Grange Street to know that we have not forgotten them. We would like them to be in even the 3-year plan, but certainly in the 10-year plan, so that they can see something in their lifetime happen on their street, as we promised.
And we are and remain passionate about the Mid-Heathcote Linear Park, the master plan for our section of the Heathcote. But we recognise that the most important thing now is to spend resources on flood mitigation and water purification. And because really the Mid-Heathcote Linear Park is about beautification, and which we strongly support, but recognise that it shouldn't be a priority now. Flood mitigation has to be the #1 priority along the river. I know that you know this, but that we have a number of residents, particularly around the Beckenham Loop area and St Martin's and along Centaurus Road, that are affected by flooding, and it's not just Flockton, although we know that is a lot more severe. That it is very stressful for residents, particularly along places like Waimea Terrace, that have been affected by flooding, and the level of stress is palpable.
Thank you. That's the full submission? Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to open it up for questions, but I do apologise for lateness. I've just been opening a New Zealand Stormwater Conference, so very timely, but took me away from the beginning of the meeting. So my apologies. I've got Jamie, then Glenn, Jimmy and Phil, David.
Cool. Thanks, Paul and Carolyn. Really articulate submission, so thank you for that. I've got two quick questions for you, if you could help me out with that. One, I note when you speak about the town hall and delaying the projects, you say that you're supportive of the town hall project being delayed, but excluding the James Hay Theatre and Auditorium. How does that work?
No, just the auditorium.
Excluding the James Hay Theatre and the auditorium in 3.4C.
Oh no, we've changed.
Yeah, we've dialed it back in light of the new situation.
So scrap James Hay, just go ahead with the auditorium? Is that the essence?
Yeah.
Slightly torn?
We would prioritise now. We looked
Yeah.
at the budget. We looked at what we had originally submitted. We looked at what was happening in the east. We rethought what was the most important thing for our city. And if we were looking at the city, at the town hall, we would save the auditorium and we'd make that a priority. But we certainly don't think, in the light of the east, and in the light of flooding, and in the light of other priorities, that we should be saving that building at that cost.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarity around that. And the only other one that's a slightly broader one, I guess, you've summarised the points and you've got 13 points which sum up the main points of the submission. And I counted through each one of them, and at least 11 out of the 13 increased costs. There's 2 there, potentially delaying of some of the anchor projects and reprioritisation of Addington there. Around the anchor projects one, though, the other suggestion was the Metro Sports. Instead of having a Metro hub, you could have a pool in each ward. I don't know if that necessarily reduces CapEx there. Arguably, it could be more expensive. But how do you?
In fairness,
I guess,
Councillor Goff, if you take away the anchor projects, that it is a net saving to the council if you total up all the costs and what we've submitted.
So I guess, and as you started the submission, I guess what I'm interested in is, where do you see us being able to pay for all of these things? We're here to try and find solutions. We want to work with you, but where can these funds come from if we were to prioritise the 12 of the 13 that you suggest?
We did. I said at the beginning of the submission, the Waltham Pool's #1 and the Memorial Base.
Yeah, there's the 5 priorities that we had in our original submission: the Waltham Lido Pool and Memorial Gates, retention at least of the Strengthening Communities Fund at current levels, the restoration of the Old Stone House, adaptation of the Colombo Street Distribution Centre for use by community organisations, and the development of a Barrington bus interchange. Those are the priorities. Okay. But we accept that, given the Quarter Method report results, that even some of those aren't they're not as top of priority. The Waltham Lido Pool and Memorial Gate is our #1 priority, and the Strengthening Communities Fund is pretty close behind.
So the anchor projects, I guess, is the suggestion for the
Yes.
realisation of funds. Okay, cool.
Glenn?
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission.
My question is about housing. Are you able to quantify in any way numbers from outright no shelter through to living garages, compromised conditions, overcrowding? Are you
In our ward?
in your ward? I know it's very difficult, quite problematic, but are you able to arrive at a number?
I couldn't tell you in our ward. I have, due to another hat, I have awareness of the sort of young people living across the city. You know, I would say conservatively, you'd say about 3,000 young people living in that kind of situation.
And you get reports from alternative sources, like the police, for instance, told us about young people in Waltham living in a very precarious and dangerous situation. Those are the kinds of things that we know of. But do we have a list of how many people in our ward? We've got the highest number of social housing in our ward, and we continue to support the provision of social housing at the current levels, if not above.
Yeah, and that was apartment.
I'd like to congratulate the council on the recent the housing accord and the I can't remember the name of it now, but what you passed the other day.
Good. Jimmy.
Thank you. One question. Based on your summation you mentioned earlier, kind of opposition to the Sun Anchor project, but after that you mentioned again, for consideration of the budget restriction, then to reprioritize and delay some of the capital projects, etc. So regarding to the stadium, convention center, and the metro sports, what is your point of view? Would like to delay? If delay is how many years, or just take out?
Well, as to how many years and timeframes, that's really for your consideration. But I mean, just as an example of things that have been made, we have a whole bunch of projects in our ward that need stonemasons. And there's a very limited supply of stonemasons, and the repair of those things inevitably is not going to take the form that it takes in a 3-year plan, because there's just not enough expert stonemasons around. And I'm aware that there's not, we're continually getting reports of delayed projects around our ward because they don't have the right skills for projects, and so they're having to move crews around to projects that have been scheduled and having to go back to projects that they haven't finished. And it seems, even from an operational perspective, that that you need to delay capital projects because we don't have enough housing to support the labour that we need in order to finish those projects in the timeframes that were mapped out in the 3-year plan.
We understand the importance of a convention centre and a sports centre to the profile of Christchurch. We understand that neither of them are going to make a profit, and that both of them are going to cost the City Council running cost money and establishment money. We know that. We're not saying that we shouldn't have them. Every big cities apparently must have them, and it's for the downflow profit for the small communities and businesses. That we know all about that, but we would delay them indefinitely, those projects, because we haven't got the money. And if we want to look at what's important to our people, it is the re-establishment of facilities in the east and swimming pools for all of our young people and children.
Thank you.
Phil.
Look, thank you for your submission too. This is excellent, and I'm not just being parochial about this. It's a very good submission. Look, just your point about Grange Street as an example where the capital program hasn't happened. We do need to have a discussion as a council about how the skirt work needs to be aligned with streets like Grange Street. So your point is taken. I just wanted to ask you about, and look, I think you've been really clear about your priorities in terms of the amount of funding that council has available, and that what your top priority is. I think you've also, in your longer list, you had opposed the outsourcing of Pioneer Early Childhood Centre services. So I'm assuming that is now further down your list, given that the cost that the staff tell us for maintaining the current service is $100,000 each year.
Yes, it is, but I want to emphasise that the importance of community-based early childhood care for women on low incomes it cannot be overstated. It is really important. I actually work for an organisation that does provide similar service, and it provides young women who would otherwise be trapped inside a house an opportunity to go out and do something else, whether that's work or whether that's involved in the community or whether it's just to go and spend time with friends. It is really important, and to contract it out to a commercial organisation would come at quite a significant social cost to those families.
It would.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but we've really just come to the end of the 15 minutes. So look, thank you both very much for your passionate plea. I can tell you I've put a big note around Grange Street, so I know that the councillors in that area were really impressed with the way that you brought the whole case to our attention. So thank you both very, very much.
Thank you,
And I'd now like to invite Andrea Cummings